welcome Jack on Director Talk Season 2. And it's lovely to have you, especially after listening to London After Midnight. I heard it like thrice, and it was very fascinating because I was just closing my eyes and I was listening to the whole thing going on. It was as if watching a movie, literally with your eyes closed. I really want to know how you do it. But first of all, let's start from where you began. So just tell us everything about how you started your journey.
Well, there was a day and I was born. I spent some time at school, learned some things, went to university. I kid. So I've been in audio production now for 17 years. I started 2006. So we started making, we converted a play I'd written for the theatre into an audio piece which we put online, and back then they called it online radio. That's how old Grandpa is. And we just put some plays online, see what happened. We put them out as MP3s, and then about 6 or 7 months later, Apple launched the iPod, if you remember that.
Yes.
And everything aligned. Basically, we started one of the first companies at Wireless Theatre. This was where we were just making these sort of offbeat, new writing little experimental pieces, different styles, live shows, recorded studio formats. We did some binaural back in the day, and we were just putting them out there as basically some of the very first podcasts in the world. So wind forward a few years, after 10 years of that, I went over to help at Audible for a couple of years as a studio manager and producer with some of their multicast productions. Murder on the Orient Express, The Soul Breaker, The Darkwater Bride, all Arabian Nights Part 1, all came out of my time there. And round about 2018 was when everything changed, because suddenly, we had 14 years of nobody knowing what a podcast was. Like, people go, "What is that?" It's just a bit of radio put on the internet. And then everything changed. Things exploded in countries like continents like North America. Podcasting went huge in places like India, and suddenly everyone wanted a podcast, and they were looking around, and it's been crazy ever since. So I've ended up working with Canadian companies, US companies, British companies, studio level indies. Worked with a Indian production company for 18 months during the pandemic as well. So that's kind of my journey. I just, I'd say right place, right time, but it took 14 years of waiting to be in the right place for the right time. And now here we are. This year, I've done a Halloween release, it seems, every year for the last 4 years. And this year we're doing London After Midnight, which is very exciting.
Very exciting indeed. So I wanted to know, how is the recording done? Because everything is so perfect, like the sound and the door closing and all of that. Because back in the days, I have heard radio plays, but then they have all that background noise going on, and there's a lot of disturbance. So how is this? How has that changed in the modern times?
Well, this one, I approach every project uniquely. Some might use remote recordings like we did on Circles, and that actually allowed for a little bit of background noise and fuzz around the actors, but everyone had pretty good sound booths. With Long Night in Egypt, for example, we actually had a hybrid system. Some of the core casts were put into individual studios across different countries. That was epic to organize. But for this one, it'd been a long time. I couldn't genuinely remember the last time I'd been in the studio for something I was going to produce or direct. So we booked a very nice, very famous studio actually in West London called the Sound House. A lot of big productions have been done there. A friend put in a call and got us a favour for a couple of days, and they really looked after us. But we were working in a totally dead environment, so every voice was recorded in mono, nice and clean, standard radio play format in a properly insulated space. But all the sound effects you're talking about, all the things that came later, that was part of the process when we got to work with Rory O'Shea, and he introduced us to the world of Dolby Atmos, which is now the big game changer for audio fiction.
So So, what is the difference between directing an audio movie and a feature? Like, there'll be a vast difference. And how do you think the audience will react to audio films? Like, is it generating interest? Are there listeners, like people going to the to theaters to watch the films? Is there a difference? Like, how is it?
Yeah, you always, this sort of started with where audio drama was heading anyway. So radio plays, if you're directing those, they tend to be quite live. You're sort of relying on the actors working around a microphone together or a series of microphones. And you kind of have to probably rehearse it, block it, and try and get each scene in one go, if that makes sense. Maybe you might get a chance for a pickup, but kind of everything feels like a piece of theatre, and that gives it that kind of live feel. And it's all about the chemistry and the pace between the actors. Oh, so excuse me. So when you're working then towards audio drama, what started happening is a lot more of that naturalism starts to come out of the process. So as a director, you're very conscious of the fact that you're having to remove things in a radio play that an actor might react against. For example, let's take your example of The Door. In a radio play, you absolutely would have a Foley artist doing the door in the background. Okay, so the act, and their footsteps would be done on gravel, right? So the actor, that part of the actor's sensibility is being sort of spatially linked to what the Foley artist is doing in the corner. What you do with audio drama, moving up to audio movies, is, like I say, you're just concentrating on the voice performances. So it becomes a different directing process. In the first thing you have to do is make sure they're getting their intentions and emotions across exactly the same, but they are cut off from that additional sound that immersive sound levels you get on a radio play. So you kind of have to be thinking always about the final edit. So if a character comes running in and an actor does a great take, are they doing the breath work? Because on a radio play, they'll probably get the footsteps and they'll go, all right, I need to go like this. Okay. But when you're doing audio, that is missing. So you have to sort of like say, look, we need you to come in here, get some breath work down, put a bit of exertion into that line. Just remember, I need a reaction sound because you're getting hit here. And you have to be very methodical about kind of visualizing what the end goal should be from the actors. And then once you've got all that, and I feel half the battle is the script. And the more information like that you can put into the script, the more the actors should go, oh, okay, here I need to be out of breath and running, for example. But if it's not there, you might just catch those little moments when you're directing them and say, just you should be running here. Put a bit of breath work into it now. Great. And then that, I think, is the next 25% of the battle, is making sure that the voice performances give you what you're going to need when you add the sound design. Because, building a beautiful soundscape of someone running up a 16-degree gradient hill, and I say that from experience at university because we had a hill that big, you just have to go up and down it every day, right? Kept me fit. But you wouldn't buy it if the voice performance isn't there. So you've always got to be thinking when you're directing, is the voice work, however beautiful the performance, then going to mesh with what you do with the sound design at the end? So,
and budget wise, which is far more expensive, like a feature or a audio movie?
well, this is the thing. Audio movies, yes, this would be a lot more expensive because Dolby Atmos is an expensive process. But fortunately, Rory was very kind and he understood the importance of what we were doing. The importance of the title of London After Midnight in itself meant that a lot of people were prepared to actually commit to this for a lot less than what they should be paid. Everyone was paid. I want to say that right now. We self-financed this and raised the budget independently for a small little indie horror piece. But everyone sort of just did it, took what the money was on offer. And compared to what you would spend on it, say, even a small indie horror movie, a feature film, this is nothing. This is it's it's four figures and less. But we've been lucky every step of the way, and that's a combination of, first of all, the title, because it is a massive London After Midnight is a massive cultural phenomena in itself. Second, and it's particularly its place in horror history. And secondly, people really responded very well to the script, which Lance and Kenton wrote. It was a brilliant adaptation. And thirdly, it was just about, we have a reputation of making sure that if you're going to come up, work with us and play with us, you're going to have a good time. Art Malik remembered that from 6 years ago, which is why he's come back for this. And yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful. It ended up just being a beautiful string of luck. But there are some good variables in there, which makes it attractive to people to jump on and like really push to do their best.
Right. So, why choose London After Midnight? What was the significance? So why did you want to do it? Like, what was the inspiration?
Well, I was working at Moonbug at the time doing some kids podcasts, Lullaby and Little Baby Bum, and I'd had COVID, so I just put on some little YouTube background noise. It's what I like to do. And there was a discussion. It literally just autoplayed for some, because I switched autoplay off, but it rolled over into this conversation about what was in the public domain this year. And after the big news that Sherlock Holmes, the entire canon, is now available of public domain, at the end of the video, like this guy just turned around and said, "Oh, and London After Midnight," and I went, "Wait, what?" Now, if you don't know London After Midnight, it is probably the most important horror film in terms of putting its footprint down on the vampire genre, the subgenre of that. The Man in the Beaver Hat, great icon. I know him for the look, and he, you could show anyone that picture and they would recognize the Man in the Beaver Hat, even if they don't know who he was. The iconography, it spans down to things like the Babadook and the Black Phone. Very recently, the Scott Derrickson and C. Rob Cargill movie. So it was like,
he gave you a compliment as well after listening.
Yeah,
he gave you a compliment as well.
He did, yes. Cargill, yes. He tweeted, he took away a copy and he went, "I'm so going to play this I'm going to play this again at the weekend. I'm going to set it up on my Dolby speakers and play it to his wife at the weekend." But yeah, he loved it. And so first of all, there was that link for me as a horror fan, because The Man in the Beaver Hat, that film was then remade. That went to Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi then sort of set the template for The Gentleman Vampire in Mark of a Vampire, moving into Dracula, etc. So there was that. But also, I am a massive nerd of like missing media. I regularly go to the BFI to see, what they turned up and what lost archive footage that you've never seen has been recovered. Because this is the thing, London After Midnight has this legendary status, which is it's both enhanced and it suffers from the fact that the last known surviving print of the film was destroyed in 1965. So it's been 7 decades officially since London After Midnight existed. There are some reconstructed versions which use the remaining stills and the screenplay and do their best. But the more I thought about it, the more I lay there in bed, it was like, that'd be cool for someone to do. That'd be cool for someone to remake. Could we remake it? But would it be totally insane to turn a silent horror film into a full cast audio drama? And that's where I just spoke to Lance and Kenton about it over the next couple of weeks, and they went away. They went away for 6 weeks. They had a little tag team system between them, and 6 weeks later, in dropped the script. And I just went, yeah, actually, this is very, very good. Well done. And then it became my problem to get it made. So,
so since the London After Midnight is already out, how has been the response from the public, the audience?
well, here's the thing, it's a very interesting thing. Some people get excited because it's London After Midnight and they go, yay. And others go, oh, yeah, right. We like Jack's work. We'll listen to it or whatever. But it's the actual conversion moment, because this is probably the first time a lot of people have heard anything mixed from Dolby Atmos. And the second they do that, it's like everything changes. It must be what, like, when you first saw CGI in Jurassic Park bring back dinosaurs. It's that much of a moment. And that is the thing where people come back and went, I never knew a piece of audio could sound like a movie.
Right.
It's like you say, they all do the same thing. They sort of go and go, yeah, audio movie. No, this is mixed. You could play this in a cinema, in a movie theater, and it would have all the immersive nature of a Spielberg film or anything being produced today, or a Marvel movie. And we've now got to this point where we can make work like this. And that's the big feedback I've got from people who've gone out, they've bought it, and they just never knew you could do this with audio. And it's like it's changing the game. London After Midnight is not the only production in Dolby Atmos, but we think it is the first UK one. We think it is the first UK independent one. It's probably the first UK horror in Dolby. And I don't want this to sound like a Dolby advert, but that seems like that is the thing that blows people's minds. And then they talk about how much they love the performances and how much they love the story, and the people are saying, like, it's very tightly written. It's not a moment is wasted, and it's very, they talk about the pace and the energy of it. But to be honest, until any of your listeners actually sit down, get a copy, and put it in their ears, they're not gonna know what they're missing, because everyone is just saying, you can make something sound like this now. And it's a very abstract thing to explain, but like all our reviews, all our feedback has been like 100% positive. So I'm starting the campaign. We need to get this on Rotten Tomatoes because we're certified fresh.
So before I can wrap up our conversation, I would like to know, would you continue making audio films, or will you switch to feature?
Good question. I'm not going back to. I really do not want to go back to standard stereo. As terrible as that sounds, we've just recorded a pilot, like a sitcom, which is very different, like very Gen Z and very funny. But again, we got very lucky, and someone agreed to do it in Atmos for us, and it just elevates the whole listening experience. So moving forward, once we get London After Midnight out there, and there's also, I've got to think about what happens next, because the APAs. Yes, you got the scoop of this one, didn't you? Because the APAs also happen this week, and you don't know where that's going to knock you. But moving forward, I would like, I'm more than happy to do more audio movies in this format. People like it. It works. It holds the attention, and people respond well to it. But there are things I would like to make. There are concepts and series that I'd like to produce as well, which we've been developing for years, and it's a very, very difficult market to get a green light for anything in audio. I guarantee if we took this out to the networks London After Midnight, we would probably still be waiting for them to come back and say, oh, let's discuss it. So so I'd like to be doing more. I love making audio, but I think in an ideal world, I would like be moving from a series to doing another one of these, back to a series. I was talking to the Horror Fan Club of Kenya, and they were pitching me the idea. So why don't you make all the Lost films for the 1965 fire? It's like, that's a good idea. You know what I mean? So the possibilities are endless right now. I just can't tell you where fate is going to take me next. That seems to be the story of my life, but that's the truth.
So I wish you all the luck with the APA awards. I hope you
Thank
win.
you.
And
never in 16, 17 years have I won an award for me. It's always been my work. So I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna turn up. I'm gonna have a few drinks. I've got a lot of friends nominated. We'll have a little party. That's it. That's my only expectation, because I've never won anything for me.
Win this time.
Well, that the irony is that's for last year's work. So that's for things like Long Night in Egypt and The World of Yesterday, and the two series I did for Moonbug. So maybe I'll get 2 nominations in a row. I don't know, we'll see, but fingers crossed. It's going to be fun.
So for our audience and our listeners, where can we find London After Midnight and your links, social media, so they can connect with you if they would like to?
Absolutely. So London After Midnight, If you go to londonaftermidnight.co.uk, londonaftermidnight.co.uk, that takes you to our site. You can get it in a variety of formats. You can get it in vinyl, limited edition vinyl, I should say, CD, very limited CDs, almost sold out. Digital download, the Dolby binaural mix is there and available as well. So you've got your choice. But here's a scoop for you. This was only announced yesterday. It'll also be available as a digital download on a brand new app called Audioteria, and it will launch as of tomorrow, which is the 27th of October. There, so you'll be able to find it there. And there's two other networks who will offer alternative versions of it. Fable and Folly will launch it on Halloween as an episodic podcast as part of Midnight Matinees, and that's just going to be the standard stereo version, and it will carry adverts and all that kind of stuff. And we will also be joining a streaming network, a streaming audio network, as of the 1st of November as well. So it'll be out there everywhere. But best way to support us, please, go to londonaftermidnight.co.uk, buy a copy, because that's supporting little indie horror creators like us. And if you want to find us out there, I'm Jack Bowman. You can find me on Twitter as Real Jack Bowman. I'm on Insta as Jack Bowman 1979. You can also find Kenton Hall, the co-director, co-producer, and co-scripter. He's on Insta as Kenton Hall 1, I believe. You can find Lance Roger Axt through Pocket Universe Productions, and that's across all media. I think he's Pocket Plot if you look around. But that's where you can find us. And there's also the Audio Marvels website as well, which is audiomarvels.com. Phew, sorry, was that too much?
No, it's fine. So thank you so much, Jack, for being on Directed
problem.
Talks and giving us your precious time since you're always so busy. Thank you for being for my audience. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you.